That morning, everything seemed to be going as usual. I was in the meeting room, ready for another weekly team meeting. The schedule was busy, but I felt prepared. My presentation was impeccable, which was no surprise, as I always strive to deliver my best. When Trevor entered the room, I noticed something different about his face. He seemed more tense than usual, but I didn't pay much attention. After all, he was always a strict but fair boss, at least in my perception until that moment. "Good morning, everyone," began Trevor, rather unceremoniously. "Let's get straight to the point. Maddie, can you start with your introduction?" I nodded, standing up confidently. I turned on the projector and started talking about our team's latest results. Everything seemed to be going well until suddenly Trevor interrupted me. "That's absurd, Maddie," he said, his voice thick with disdain. "These numbers don't make sense. How do you expect us to believe these results are acceptable?" I was in shock. I looked at my colleagues around the table, all of whom had expressions of surprise and discomfort. I knew my data was correct. I had reviewed everything meticulously. "Trevor, I've reviewed these numbers several times." "I'm sure they're correct," I replied, trying to remain calm. "Are you sure?" he replied, with a sarcastic tone. "Because, in my opinion, it looks like you didn't do your job properly. This is unacceptable and a waste of time for all of us." The public humiliation was devastating. I could feel my face burning with shame, but also with anger. Trevor continued to criticize me, each word like a sharp knife. He wouldn't stop attacking me, and the injustice of the situation left me speechless. "If you can't do the job right, maybe we should find someone who can," he finished, casting a dismissive look my way. The room was in absolute silence. No one dared to intervene, and I felt completely alone. When the meeting finally ended, I left the room as quickly as I could, fighting back the tears. In the hallway, I ran into Emily, a coworker who had always been kind to me. She placed her hand on my shoulder in a gesture of silent support. "Maddie, I'm sorry about what happened in there," she said, with a worried expression. "Trevor crossed the line." "I can't believe he did that," I replied, voice shaking. "I always did my best, and he humiliates me like that in front of everyone." "He had no right to do that," Emily stated, with conviction. "Something needs to be done. He can't keep treating people like this." Those words resonated in my mind. Something needed to be done. That night, as I reflected on what had happened, my indignation grew. Trevor had crossed a line, and I couldn't let him get away with it. I decided I would get revenge. It wouldn't be an impulsive or violent revenge, but something he would never forget. I would gather compromising information and use it at the right time. Trevor's actions could not be without consequences. The public humiliation was the trigger for a series of events that would change my life and the dynamics of the company forever. Trevor underestimated my spirit and my determination, and he would soon discover that he messed with the wrong person. From that moment on, my mission was clear. I would expose Trevor and make sure he paid for his actions. After that public humiliation at the meeting, I felt lost, hurt, but also determined not to let Trevor get away with it. It was then that, during a coffee break, I vented to Jack, one of my closest colleagues. "I can't believe Trevor did this to me in front of everyone," I said, still feeling the anger boiling inside me. Jack looked at me with an expression that mixed concern and solidarity. "Maddie, you're not alone. Trevor has crossed the line with me too. That's why I stopped presenting my ideas in meetings. He always finds a way to humiliate me too." I was surprised, but at the same time relieved. "Really, Jack? I thought it was just me." "It's a relief to know I'm not alone, but it's horrible that he would do this to you too." At that moment, Emily, another colleague of ours, approached. "What are you talking about?" she asked, curious. Jack looked at me, and I nodded before answering. "About Trevor, how he treats us. He humiliated me in the meeting today, and Jack said he's been there too." Emily sighed deeply. "You guys have no idea. Trevor made me cry once. Since then, I've tried to avoid any direct interaction with him. He's toxic and needs to be stopped. That's when I realized there were more people willing to fight Trevor than I imagined. So why don't we do something about it? I suggested, feeling a flame of hope light up. Jack and Emily looked at each other, and I could see the same determination in their eyes. "I'm in," said Jack. "But we need to be careful. Trevor is smart and has a lot of influence." Emily agreed. "Yes, he has eyes and ears everywhere. We need to put together a plan and gather evidence first." Thus, we formed a secret alliance. We began exchanging information and meeting at alternative times to discuss our findings. Each of us had something to contribute. Jack, with his IT skills, began digging through old emails and company documents. Emily, being in human resources, had access to sensitive files and began gathering reports from other employees who had also been victims of Trevor. In one of these secret meetings, Jack brought important information. "Guys, you won't believe what I found," he said, excited. "There are some emails here that show that Trevor has been involved in some pretty suspicious transactions." Emily's eyes widened. "Really? This could be exactly what we need to take him down." I felt like we were on the right path, but the journey wouldn't be easy. "We have to be meticulous," I said. "We need irrefutable evidence before we do anything." These secret meetings brought us even closer together, transforming our frustration and pain into strength and determination. Each new discovery increased our confidence and made us believe that we could, indeed, do justice. The feeling of mutual support was indescribable. I knew that with Jack and Emily by my side, we could face any adversity. During one of these meetings, Emily showed a list of other employees who had also been harmed by Trevor. "There are more people than we thought," she said, showing the names. "If we can get their support, we can be even stronger." Thus, our alliance grew, and the support network expanded. Each new ally brought new information and experience, strengthening our case against Trevor. The feeling of not being alone gave me a new perspective and renewed energy to move forward with our plan. Through it all, I began to realize that the fight against Trevor wasn't just mine. It belonged to all of us, who had been harmed by his abusive behavior. United, we had the chance to do something big, to change the company's dynamics and create a fairer and more respectful work environment for everyone. And so, with Jack and Emily by my side, I felt we were ready for the battle that lay ahead. I decided I needed professional help to gather evidence against Trevor. I remembered Mike, an old friend from my college days. He was a private detective now, and if anyone could find anything compromising about Trevor, it was him. I grabbed my cell phone and looked for Mike's number. We hadn't spoken in years, but I hoped he still remembered me. "Hello?" Mike speaking, his voice was firm but friendly. "Mike. This is Maddie, remember me?" "From college," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Maddie. Of course I remember. How long? How are you?" He sounded genuinely happy to hear my voice, which gave me a little hope. "Well, actually, I need your help. I have a problem at work and I think you're the right person to help me. Can you find some time for us to meet and talk?" I asked, trying to hide the urgency in my voice. "Sure, Maddie. How about we meet at the cafe near campus tomorrow at noon?" he suggested. "Perfect, see you there," I agreed, feeling momentary relief. The next day I arrived at the cafe a little early, eager to see Mike and tell him what was going on. He arrived a few minutes later, with the same warm smile as always. "Maddie, it's great to see you," he said, hugging me. "It's great to see you too, Mike. But let's get straight to the point. I have a serious problem at work. My boss, Trevor, humiliated me in front of everyone and I need proof against him to get revenge. I need you to find out if he's involved in something illegal," I explained, as he listened intently. "I get it. I'll start investigating Trevor. I'll need a few days to gather information. I'll keep you posted," he promised, writing down a few things in his notebook. The following days were a mixture of anxiety and hope. I knew Mike was working hard, but the wait was excruciating. Until finally I got a message from him. I found something big. We need to meet. We met in the same cafe. Mike had a serious look on his face, which made me even more nervous. Maddie, what I've discovered is very serious. Trevor is involved in embezzling company funds. He's been stealing money and covering it up for years. I have overwhelming evidence, he said, showing me a folder full of documents. My God, this is bigger than I imagined, I replied, feeling a mix of relief and dread. And now what do we do? We will gather more evidence to make sure we have a solid case. I will continue investigating and will keep you informed, he assured. Thank you, Mike. I don't know what I would do without you, I thanked him sincerely. We're in this together, Maddie. We're going to take Trevor down, he said with determination. With each new discovery Mike made, my determination only grew. I knew I was on the right path, but I also knew the battle was just beginning. Each day, I received new information from Mike that revealed the depth of Trevor's corruption. He not only embezzled funds, but also manipulated documents and harmed other employees to cover his tracks. Mike, this is unbelievable. How could someone be so cruel and greedy? I asked, shocked by each new revelation. Maddie, people like Trevor are everywhere. But it's our duty to expose them. We're doing the right thing, he assured me. With these tests in hand, my confidence grew. I knew that with the help of Mike, Jack, and Emily, I had a real chance of bringing down Trevor and bringing justice. The holiday party would be the perfect time for the reveal. I was ready to face Trevor and expose his true colors to everyone. As the end of the year party date approached, an uneasiness began to take over me. I knew that what we planned to do would have a huge impact, not just on Trevor, but on the entire company. On the one hand, the idea of exposing Trevor and his illegal activities was extremely tempting. He needed to be held accountable for what he did, not just to me, but to so many other colleagues. On the other hand, the reality was that this revelation could cause significant collateral damage. I remember one particular afternoon when Jack, Emily, and I met in the building's coffee shop, a discreet place where we could talk without arousing suspicion. Jack seemed particularly restless, stirring his coffee over and over again. I've been thinking, Maddie, he began, hesitantly, what we're about to do could affect a lot of people. What if the company can't recover from such a scandal? What if innocent colleagues lose their jobs because of it? I sighed, feeling the weight of his words. I know, Jack. I've been thinking about it too. But we can't keep allowing Trevor to abuse his power. If we don't do anything, he'll keep hurting people. Emily, who had been silent until then, finally spoke. Maddie, I understand what you're saying, and I agree that Trevor needs to be stopped. But we have to be prepared for the consequences. We could end up hurting more people than we realize. Those words echoed in my mind for the next few days. Every time I looked at the video we were putting together, I felt a mixture of determination and doubt. One night, while reviewing the latest edits of the video at home, I received a text from Mike, "We need to talk. I have new information." I met him in the park near my apartment. He was serious, more than usual, and that made me apprehensive. Maddie, I know you're determined to expose Trevor, but I need to warn you about something, he said. I discovered that some of his illegal activities involve high-ranking people in the company. This could turn into something much bigger. My heart raced. Bigger? What do you mean? If you expose Trevor, it could trigger an investigation that goes far beyond him. It could destabilize the entire company. I know you want justice, but you need to consider the full impact of this. I returned home with my head racing. I was at an impasse. Was justice for Trevor worth the risk of destabilizing the entire company? What about the people who depended on this job to support their families? In a moment of weakness, I called Jack. I needed to hear his voice, I needed his perspective. Jack, I'm lost. I don't know if we're doing the right thing, I confessed. There was silence on the other end of the line before he responded. Maddie, I'm here for you, whatever you decide. I know it's not easy, but you need to follow your heart. If you think exposing Trevor is right, then let's do it together." Those words gave me a little comfort, but the doubt still persisted. Finally, I called a meeting with Jack and Emily to discuss what Mike had revealed. "We need to decide together," I said, looking at them. "If we expose Trevor, we could destabilize the entire company. But if we do nothing, he will continue his illegal activities and abuse of power." Emily sighed, looking older than she really was. "I think, in the end, justice must prevail. But we need to be prepared for the consequences." Jack nodded. "I'm with you, Maddie. Whatever you decide, I'll be by your side." Those words gave me the courage I needed. Even knowing the risks, I decided to move forward. Trevor needed to be stopped, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. It was time for justice, regardless of the consequences. While preparing the plan, I began to notice that something was changing between Jack and me. From the moment he joined my cause, I felt a different connection. It wasn't just that we shared the same desire for justice against Trevor, there was something more, something I couldn't ignore. One night we were working late in the office, reviewing some documents Mike had given us. We were alone in the meeting room, the silence being broken only by the sound of sheets of paper being handled. "Maddie, have you ever thought about the consequences of all this?" Jack asked, looking directly at me with those eyes that always gave me security. "Of course I have, Jack. I think about it all the time. But we can't let Trevor go unpunished. He needs to pay for what he did, not just to me, but to all of us." Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. He seemed to be struggling with something internally, and I could feel the tension building in the air. "I know, Maddie. I care about you. I want to make sure you're doing this for the right reasons, and that you don't hurt yourself in the process." That confession caught me off guard. I knew Jack cared about me as a colleague, but his words carried a different weight, something deeper. I felt my heart accelerate, and a mixture of emotions took over me. "Jack, I appreciate your concern. I really do. But I need to do this. Not just for myself, but for everyone who suffered at Trevor's hands. And knowing that you're by my side, it gives me strength." He got closer, and for a moment, I felt like the world around us had stopped. His eyes were fixed on mine, and I could see the sincerity and concern in them. Before I could react, he grabbed my hand, intertwining our fingers. "Maddie, I'm with you. I always will be. But I want you to know that my feelings for you go beyond this fight. I care about you in ways I can't hide anymore." Those words made my heart race. I didn't know he felt the same way, but in that moment, it all made sense. The closeness, the care, the looks exchanged, everything was there, clear as day. "Jack, I feel the same way too. But we have to be careful. We can't let this distract us from our goal." He nodded, and a soft smile formed on his lips. "I know. And I promise I won't let you. I just wanted you to know how much you mean to me." From that moment on, our relationship took on a new dimension. The secret romance that blossomed between us added an extra layer of tension and complexity to the plot. Each time we were together, the line between our mission and our feelings became thinner. There was one night when we were reviewing the video I planned to show at the holiday party. The tension was palpable, and Jack seemed more nervous than usual. "Maddie, are you sure about this? There's no going back once we do this." I looked at him, feeling the pressure of the decision we were about to make. "Yes, Jack. I'm right. Trevor needs to be exposed, and we need to end this corruption. And with you by my side, I know I can face anything." He smiled, shaking my hand. "Then let's do this together. And no matter what happens, I'll be here for you." In the days that followed, our relationship became a source of strength as well as conflict. There were times when Jack's concern for my safety almost caused him to retreat, but our love and determination kept us going. With each step, with each new discovery, we knew we were closer to our goal. And so, with our hearts intertwined and our mission clear, we continued to prepare the final blow that would change our lives forever. The final decision was a moment of deep reflection and anguish for me. She was torn between going ahead with the plan or backing down, considering the possible repercussions. I knew that by exposing Trevor, I would not only put my career at risk, but it could also trigger a series of consequences for the company and my colleagues. Doubt gnawed at my mind, and it was during a sleepless night that I made the decision that would change everything. "Jack, I need to talk to you," I said, one cold Friday morning. We were in a small coffee shop near the office, a place where we often sought refuge. He looked at me with a worried expression, already knowing what was coming. "Maddie, I know you're going through a difficult time. But are you sure you want to go through with this? The consequences can be unpredictable," he said, holding my hand. "I'm aware of the risks, Jack. But I can't continue to live with this sense of injustice. Trevor needs to be held accountable for his actions. Not just for me, but for everyone he's harmed," I replied, my voice firm but with a tremor of uncertainty. Jack sighed deeply, looking down for a moment before looking back at me. "If that's your decision, I'll be by your side. But we need to be prepared for anything. It won't be easy." "Thank you, Jack. I don't know what I would do without you," she said, feeling a wave of relief mixed with fear. The conversation with Emily was equally difficult. She was always a voice of reason, and I knew her opinion was crucial. "You know, Maddie, I'm worried about what might happen too. But I'm with you. Trevor has crossed the line many times, and someone needs to have the courage to stand up to him," Emily said, as we sat in the office break room. "Thank you, Emily. Your trust in me means a lot," I replied, feeling a weight slowly being lifted from my shoulders. With Jack and Emily's support solidified, I felt more determined than ever. The next step was to inform Mike of my decision. We arranged to meet at the same cafe where we met for the first time to discuss the plan. "Mike, I've decided to move forward. We're going to expose Trevor at the holiday party," I announced, trying to keep my voice steady. "Are you sure, Maddie? This won't be easy, and the consequences could be serious. But if you're determined, I'll be with you until the end," Mike said, with a resolute look. "Yes, I'm right. We need to do this," I replied, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. Over the next few days, our little alliance grew stronger. Jack, Emily, and I worked tirelessly, reviewing every detail of the plan. Mike continued to provide more evidence, and with each new discovery, my conviction grew. "Maddie, we can do it. We're doing the right thing," Jack said, one night when we were all gathered in my living room, finalizing the preparations. "I know, Jack. I just hope this is all worth it," I replied, looking at him gratefully. The decision to move forward was not easy, but it was necessary. We were about to face a storm, and I knew nothing would be the same. However, justice needed to prevail. Trevor should be held accountable for his actions, and we were ready to fight for it. With each step, with each conversation, our resolve solidified, and the alliance between us became stronger. We were ready for whatever came, united by the conviction that we were doing the right thing. The days leading up to the end-of-year party were intense and full of conflicting emotions. Me, Jack, Emily, and Mike were all going a mile a minute, each playing their crucial role in making sure everything went according to plan. The tension in the air was palpable, but our determination was even greater. Mike, with his skill and experience as a private detective, managed to gather even more damning evidence against Trevor. He discovered suspicious financial transactions and incriminating emails that proved the company's embezzlement of funds. "Maddie, this is pure gold," he said, holding up a flash drive with a satisfied smile. "We have everything we need to take Trevor down once and for all." Meanwhile, Jack and Emily were in charge of putting together the bombshell video. We spent hours at Jack's house, reviewing and editing every detail. "We have to make sure there is no room for doubt," said Emily, as she adjusted the sequence of the images. Jack, ever meticulous, agreed, and we also need to do it in a way that makes maximum impact. As the day of the party approached, the anxiety only increased. I found myself questioning again if we were doing the right thing. What if this ends up hurting more people than Trevor? I asked Jack, as we sat on the couch, surrounded by stacks of documents and video equipment. He placed his hand on my shoulder and looked into my eyes seriously. Maddie, we're doing this for justice. Think about how many people have been harmed by him. We need to put an end to this. Emily also felt the weight of responsibility. I'm afraid of the repercussions, she confessed in a moment of vulnerability. But I know we can't go back now. What Trevor did is unforgivable, and he needs to be held accountable. His words, although hesitant, carried a truth that we could not ignore. We spent sleepless nights reviewing the plan and adjusting every detail. We wanted to make sure there were no glitches. We have to be precise, Mike said, as he double-checked event times and logistics. Once this starts, there will be no stopping. On the eve of the party, tension was at its peak. We were all gathered at Jack's house for one last rehearsal. Let's go over this one more time, Emily said, visibly nervous. Maddie, you give the opening speech. Right after, Jack turns on the video. And Mike, you'll be ready for any eventuality. I took a deep breath and tried to calm my nerves. We're ready, I said, more to myself than to the others. Jack held my hand and smiled. We're in this together, Maddie. It's going to be okay. The morning of the event, I woke up with my heart racing. Every step felt heavier, every second longer. It was D-Day. As I got ready, I couldn't help but think about everything we had been through up until then. All the humiliations, the injustice, the moments of doubt. But I also thought about the strength we found in each other, the friendship and support that brought us together. I arrived at the New Year's Eve party feeling like I was about to jump off a cliff. Jack and Emily were already there, taking care of the final technical preparations. Mike was in a strategic position, ready to act if something got out of control. Ready? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Ready, they replied in unison, with determination in their eyes. As the guests arrived and the party began, I was overcome by an almost surreal calm. I knew there was no going back. We were about to change not just our lives, but everyone's lives at that company. And most of all, we were about to get justice. The night of the New Year's Eve party finally arrived, and the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. I could feel the tension in the air as I watched my coworkers mingle, laugh, and try to forget, at least for a few hours, the pressures of everyday life. Trevor, as always, was in the spotlight, with no idea what was coming. As I prepared to give the opening speech, my thoughts were racing. Jack and Emily were by my side, offering moral support. Jack held my hand and whispered, Maddie, everything will be fine. We are with you. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. The music stopped, and all eyes turned to me. I took the makeshift stage and began to speak, my voice initially shaky but gaining steadiness as I went on. Good evening, everyone. Before we begin the celebration, I would like to share something very important with you. I looked at Trevor, who had a confident smile on his face. Little did he know what was about to happen. I signaled to Jack, who was in charge of the projection equipment. The lights dimmed, and the video began to play on the large screen at the back of the room. The first images were of financial documents, accompanied by the voice of Mike, my detective friend, explaining the irregularities and embezzlement of funds. The room, which was filled with murmurs and laughter, became completely silent. Then recordings emerged of conversations where Trevor discussed his illegal activities with other accomplices. The employees' faces ranged from perplexity to indignation. This is a hoax, Trevor shouted, standing up abruptly. But no one listened to him. Everyone was focused on the screen, absorbing every detail of the evidence that my allies and I had gathered. When the video ended, the room was dead silent for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. Then the murmurs began. People were shocked, outraged, some even in tears. Maddie, did you know that? Asked Sarah, a coworker. Yes, Sarah. And that's why I decided that everyone needed to know. Trevor, now pale and sweating, tried to regain control of the situation. This is all a conspiracy. Don't believe these lies. But no one seemed convinced. The company executives, who were present, immediately approached Trevor, demanding explanations. It was evident that he was panicking. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by an expression of pure despair. Emily, who had been relatively quiet all night, finally spoke. "We need a full investigation. This cannot be swept under the rug." The executives agreed and began organizing an emergency meeting to discuss next steps. Trevor was escorted out of the hall, still trying to protest, but it was clear that his reign of terror had come to an end. After the initial commotion passed, many colleagues came to thank me. They were relieved to finally see justice being done. Jack pulled me aside and wrapped me in a tight hug. "You were amazing, Maddie. I'm so proud of you." I smiled, feeling a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. However, I knew that this was just the beginning. There was a lot to be done to ensure the company recovered and became a better place for everyone. As the party continued, now taking on a darker tone, I realized I had done the right thing. Justice was necessary, and despite all the moral dilemmas and personal complications, I was willing to face any consequence. That night, I not only exposed Trevor, but I also took a crucial step toward re-establishing integrity and trust in our workplace. As soon as the video ended, the silence in the room was deafening. You could feel the tension in the air, as if everyone was waiting to see Trevor's reaction. He, usually so confident and arrogant, was pale as a ghost. His eyes searched the room, looking for some support, some explanation, but there was no one to save him. "This is absurd. It's a setup. Whoever did this will pay dearly." Trevor finally shouted, but his voice was shaking. It was evident that he was panicking. The company executives quickly gathered in a corner of the room, whispering among themselves. The CEO, Mr. Harrison, a man with a rigid posture and an always serious expression, took a few steps forward and asked for silence. "Trevor, come with me. Let's resolve this properly," he said, with a forced calm that convinced no one. Trevor swallowed hard and followed Mr. Harrison out of the room, as murmurs began to fill the room. The end-of-year party, which should be a time of celebration and joy, had turned into a stage for a bombastic revelation. Emily approached me with a worried look. "Maddie, are you okay?" "I am, Emily. Just a little nervous about what's going to happen now." "But it had to be done," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. Jack, who was by my side throughout the performance, held my hand and whispered, "You were amazing. We're with you." News of the video quickly spread throughout the office, and the next morning, everyone was talking about what had happened. The company announced that an internal investigation would be launched immediately to investigate the allegations made against Trevor and others possibly involved. "Good morning, everyone. I would like to inform you that as a result of yesterday's events, Trevor has been relieved of his duties until the investigation is complete. We are committed to maintaining transparency and fairness within our company," announced Mr. Harrison in an emergency meeting. The following days were intense. The investigation team worked day and night, reviewing documents, emails, and contracts. Each new discovery seemed to confirm the accusations made in the video. Trevor wasn't just involved in embezzling funds, there was an entire network of corruption that covered several levels of the company. "Jack, you won't believe it. They found proof that 2 other executives were helping Trevor cover it up," Emily said, joining us at lunch. "This is bigger than we imagined," I replied, worried. "But at least now they're dismantling everything." The tension in the office was palpable, but there was also a sense of relief among the employees. Many who previously feared reprisals began to feel safer talking about their own experiences with Trevor and other corrupt executives. "I never thought I would see this happening," commented Sarah, a longtime colleague. "I always thought they were untouchable." The change in office dynamics was remarkable. People were more open, there was a climate of cooperation and transparency that had never existed before. The culture of fear and intimidation was being replaced by one of trust and mutual respect. "Mr. Harrison wants to speak to you, Maddie," his assistant said, approaching me in the hallway. I went to the CEO's office with my heart racing. As he entered, he looked at me with a serious expression, but there was a gleam of recognition in his eyes. "Maddie, I want to thank you for what you did. It was brave and necessary. You not only helped us uncover the truth, but you also brought a new sense of justice to our company," he said. "Thank you, Mr. Harrison. I just did what I thought was right," I replied, feeling a huge weight lifted from my shoulders. "I would like to discuss some promotion opportunities with you. The company needs people like you who have courage and integrity," he continued. I left Mr. Harrison's office with a sense of accomplishment I had never experienced before. I knew there were still challenges ahead, but at that moment, I felt that justice had prevailed and that a new, fairer, and more transparent chapter was beginning for all of us in the company. Just when I thought everything was resolved, a shocking turn of events completely changed the course of the situation. Mike, my detective friend, came up to me with a serious expression on his face. He pulled me to a more private corner of the office, where we could talk without being overheard. "Maddie, I have something important to tell you," he began, bluntly. "During the investigation, I discovered that Trevor did not act alone. He was just one piece in a much larger scheme." My eyes widened with surprise and worry. I had thought that our fight for justice had ended with the revelation of the video at the holiday party. But apparently the hole was deeper than I imagined. "What do you mean by that, Mike?" I asked, trying to remain calm. "There is a company board member involved. He orchestrated the whole thing, using Trevor as a scapegoat to divert attention from himself," Mike explained. "I obtained enough evidence to link this board member to the crimes of corruption and embezzlement." I felt a chill down my spine. The fight was not over yet. We needed to keep going, not only to bring justice, but to ensure the company was a safe and honest place for all employees. "Who is this person?" I asked, already imagining the difficulties we would face when exposing a member of the council. "His name is Robert Sinclair," Mike replied, showing some documents that confirmed his words. I knew that facing Robert Sinclair would be much more complicated than dealing with Trevor. Sinclair was a powerful and influential man with connections across many sectors. Even so, I couldn't back down now. We needed to expose the truth, no matter how difficult it was. I called Jack and Emily for an urgent meeting. We needed to discuss our next steps. "We have a new challenge ahead," I began, after explaining everything Mike had discovered. "Robert Sinclair, one of the board members, is behind it all. Trevor was just a cog in their scheme." Jack and Emily looked at me, initially stunned, but quickly regained their resolve. "So, we need to continue," said Jack firmly. "We can't let him get away with it." "I agree," Emily added. "But we need to be even more careful this time. Sinclair is powerful and will try to crush us if he sees we're behind him." We spent the next few days meticulously planning our next steps. Mike continued to gather evidence, while Jack and Emily worked with me to ensure our actions were discreet. We needed a foolproof plan to expose Sinclair. Ultimately, we decided that the best approach would be to anonymously report it to the media. We gathered all the evidence into a detailed dossier and sent it to a renowned investigative journalist. We knew that with the right exposure, Sinclair would have no way of escaping. When the report aired, it caused a real uproar. Sinclair tried to deny the accusations, but the evidence was irrefutable. An official investigation was opened, and he was quickly removed from the board. Trevor, already discredited and without allies, ended up being prosecuted and arrested. To my surprise, my courage and integrity did not go unnoticed. I received an unexpected promotion, along with the recognition I had always sought. More than that, the company finally began to transform into a fairer and more transparent place, thanks to the collective effort of everyone who came together to expose the truth. Talking to Jack and Emily after all this, I felt a mixture of relief and satisfaction. "We did it, Maddie," Jack said, holding my hand. "We did the right thing." "Yes, we did," I agreed, feeling renewed hope for the future. The fight had been arduous, but it would be worth it. justice prevailed, and the company was finally on the right path. And although the journey was full of challenges and dilemmas, I knew that what we believe in would always be worth fighting for.